Yeah, yes, ma'am. Go ahead. I'm just grabbing something to drink real quick.
Okay, thank you. We'll start off with an apology for our tardiness. We have traffic issues for people that work. So we'll call the meeting, the July 6th, 2022 meeting of the Southwest Community Policing Council is called to order at 6:06 p.m. The session is recorded for posting on the website. The meeting notes from the June 1, 2022 meeting and the meeting plan for the July 6, 2022 meeting were approved by the council at the last planning session. The minutes will be added to the website as required by O-20-27, the Community Policing Council ordinance. The meeting plan currently posted on the website will be replaced with the plan approved by the Southwest CPC at the planning meeting and submitted to the CPC liaison on Friday, July the 1st, 2022. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and we will join in the discussion of recruiting future APD officers, how it's going, how the restrictions from COVID were overcome. We'll talk about the training of APD officers to create an environment of constitutional community-oriented policing, how it's going, how the restrictions affected it. The mission of the council is to meet the duties and responsibilities as outlined in the Community Policing Ordinance section 9-4-6-6 directs the CPC to facilitate communication, collaboration, consensus building, and cooperation between the Albuquerque Police Department and the community. As you notice, we started late tonight because of traffic and people that work. We would like people that work to be a part of our council and to attend our meetings as community participants. So please make a note in the chat box as to whether or not you would like the meeting to be moved to 6:30. We're considering beginning that on July the 7th. So let's start off with introductions. I'm Wanda Harrison. I was born in Albuquerque, graduated Rio Grande High School, and immediately left the state, and then returned in November of 2016. My personal goal remains to improve civility in the Southwest Area Command of Albuquerque. Andrea?
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Lester Young. I have been in New Mexico for 46 years. I was born in El Paso, Texas, but only lived there for like a year or so. I joined the Southwest CPC Council. I believe now it's been a little over a year. Actually, I kind of lost track of time, but my goal is the same as Wanda's, is we definitely want to help the community and our Southwest officers to become more of, to strengthen a bond, to strengthen a relationship between the officers and the community.
The Southwest CPC began the year 2021 with 10 members. We received resignations from Josue Rodriguez for lack of interest, and Stephanie Griego started to work for the city, so she can no longer be a CPC member. Dr. Jonathan Madison accepted an out-of-state job and resigned effective December 31, 2021. Chris Cedillo, a 26-year retiree, leads the American Legion Post 13 Honor Guard. That honor guard won the first place in last September's competition. He is also a board member of the Honor Flight of Northern New Mexico. They raised funds to fly 25 veterans, beginning with World War II, to the Washington, D.C. to see the war memorials and other services related to the military. These activities with veterans left no time for the CPC, so we've lost Chris Cedillo. Robbie Vigil wanted to pursue other avenues for the things important to him. Joseph Colazzi has personal reasons for leaving the council. We hope he will complete a statement of interest when things allow. Teresa Garcia accepted 2 full-time jobs, eliminating her free time. Mona Varela was a member for about 30 days before resigning. By the end of April 2022, the council consisted of 3 members, David Reza, Andrea Lester Young, and myself. I think David has ghosted the Southwest CPC, leaving Wanda and Andrea to keep the ship afloat. The ordinance allows for a maximum membership of 11 members. The Southwest would like to have a full council membership. Please complete a statement of interest online if you have approximately 10 hours a month to devote to improving the community participants relationship with APD. The Community Policing Council exists to create a better life for all residents. The Southwest wants to add a new member to the council tonight. I would like to introduce Vicki Lester. How are you tonight? Oh, you're not unmuted. Oh, we're still muted. We can't hear your voice.
You are muted now. You might have the wrong. No, you're muted now. You got the red. There we go.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great, great, great. So nice to meet you. Could you, for the second time, could you please tell everyone about you, the participants, give us a little update on what you've been up to, who you are, so on?
My name is Vicki Lester. I have lived in Albuquerque for about, yeah, I'm going to tell you how old I am now, for about 67 years, no, 66 years. We moved here when my father got stationed at that time, Sandia Base. So I went through school in Albuquerque, elementary, middle, high school, went to West Mesa High School, graduated from University of Albuquerque, UNM, and got my doctorate at the University of New Mexico. My brother was on APD. My mom and dad helped build the fraternal order of police. So all my adolescent life in elementary school, we were involved with APD. So other than that, I've worked, I own a medical spa. I was an educator here in Albuquerque for years, taught high school, was an administrator of high school, and did some courses and helped at University of New Mexico. And I have 2 daughters.
Wonderful. Andrea, do you have any other questions this evening? We would like to open, since the council represents the Southwest Area Command, we represent the civilian side of it, all the community participants. So if any community participants have any questions that they would like to ask Vicki, please raise your hand in the chat or put it in the chat box, and we will ask those questions for you. Andrea, do you have anything else tonight that you'd like to ask?
No, I don't have anything else, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now. So I would like to go ahead and move to add Vicki Lester as a member of the Southwest CPC.
I will second that motion, and she is added to our CPC by unanimous consent. Well, unanimous means we're clapping, so I think we are clapping, correct, Andrea? We are clapping.
Yep, we're clapping.
We're very happy to have another member. Thank you so much for joining us, Vicki. Okay, so then let's get down. Well, we've taken care of all the business. We had business that we needed to put on the record tonight. So let's start out. We've discussed what we're going to talk about tonight. This is a discussion, so everyone should feel free to add your comments, ask any questions of anyone else that you want to. This is a conversation as if we were all sitting around having our favorite beverage. So we'll start out tonight with Sergeant Silva. Want to tell us what roadblocks you've had to overcome, how it's going, how many officers are you getting? Give us the scoop, please.
Okay, so I've been with the recruiting unit for 2 years. Is somebody not on mute? I'm hearing an echo. I've been with the recruiting unit for 2 years now, and I started with them back in 2019, well, 2020, sorry. And obviously that was the time where there was a lot of lockdowns and things like that. So some of the stuff that we were doing in recruiting, or they were doing when I got there, was a lot of social media. And that helped us overcome some of those obstacles that the pandemic was presenting during that time frame. And things such as this, is Zoom meetings. And I think what we learned is that we didn't have a modern recruiting method, because the pandemic really didn't decrease our application rate. In fact, we had somewhat of an increase because we were focusing so much on electronic means for outreach. And it goes in line with what a lot of the studies are showing nowadays. When you're recruiting for this quote unquote millennials, technology is primary to the life, those that are coming into the working age now. And so we have to refine our means and understand that the group that we're going after that are going to be policing in the future have to be recruited to in the ways that they're used to communicating, which is social media, text message. We do a lot of stuff electronically. Even after the pandemic ended, we still look for virtual recruiting events. One of the biggest benefits is that a out-of-state trip for me to go and recruit is very expensive, and a Zoom meeting is very inexpensive and very quick. So we can travel around the country without ever having to leave our office. Now, the newest obstacle that we're encountering is that as restrictions have lifted, less and less of the schools and areas where we target for recruitment are willing to do virtual meetings. During the pandemic, obviously that was their only means, so it was very easy to solicit a neighboring state that has a college or a law enforcement program to say, hey, can we do a virtual event? We reach every single one of their students. Now they're wanting you to actually travel there. Less and less are willing to do virtual recruitment. So that's a challenge for us. We're still trying, but more and more it seems like they're pushing for actual travel, which is good. I mean, it's good to meet people face to face, but it's very complicated to send a couple of recruiters to another state. I mean, the processes are cumbersome. You know, you have to arrange flights and make sure that it works for everybody's schedules and so on and so forth. So that's actually become an obstacle. I've noticed that prior to when I became a recruiting sergeant, we never did Zoom meetings for CPCs. And it created some difficulty especially for the officers, for me as a sergeant, because I went to so many. It was difficult for me to make those meetings. Now with the virtual meetings, it's quite easy. I'm doing it from my house right now. And so I think that that's a real challenge for us, is, you know, that we kind of identified that the working group that we're looking for recruitment right now primarily use electronic and online means as a primary means of communication. And so now that people are going back to work and doing less and less online, it's become a little bit more challenging for us. One of the things you asked, Wanda, is how many we're getting from the west side. I mean, if you're looking for specifically the Southwest, I don't have an answer. I can tell you that within New Mexico, that's where we get the majority of our applications. And we receive anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 applications yearly. And when I say applications, what I really mean is interest cards. APD requires you to submit an interest card where it pre-screens you for disqualifiers. And most of those are coming from within the state. And it's funny that Andrea comes from El Paso, because the next largest area where we receive applications from is Texas, specifically El Paso. So we do try to travel down south to El Paso and the neighboring areas quite often. We're going to be going to Fort Bliss this month. They're having a big a big hiring fair for soldiers that are leaving the military. And it's just historically, the military and law enforcement, I guess because of the chain of command, the kind of structure and the organization, seem to fit well. And we get a lot of good officers from military. But more than anything, I kind of want to just take questions, because I don't want to just talk at everybody. I think everybody has ideas on what we can do to improve our recruitment. Maybe they know somebody that's interested and they can tell me there's somebody that you know that's interested in, and you can explain why they're not applying. So is there any questions at this point?
I have a question. Are you guys offering any like sign-on bonuses for people?
We are. They actually had just ended on June 18th. Still waiting for the new administrative instruction to be signed so we can start offering those out again. I'm not gonna lie to people and say that there's a sign-on bonus right now because it ended recently. However, the last thing I want to do is tell somebody that they're going to get something that they don't get. So
Right.
until it's officially signed, I've been told it's going to continue. And what it will look like is 10,000 for cadets, 15,000 for police laterals, and 1,500 for police service aides. The biggest, I guess, misleading part about that is people tend to think that it's 15 grand right up front, and that's not the case. It's spread out over 3 payments. So you're going to get a portion of it up front, well, not up front, at the end of the academy, then at the end of OJT, and then usually the last payment's going to defer till the end of the first year of service.
Okay.
So yeah.
And how about, are you looking at trying to recruit anybody who's retired, like retired from APD? Are they allowed to come back and serve?
Absolutely. So, there's rules around how long you can be outside of law enforcement before you to when you can come back. So if you've been gone for 8 years and you want to come back, you have to redo the entire academy. So hopefully if you've left, you're coming back prior to then, and you can come back as a lateral. They'll still have to go through a short academy. The only ones that there's any exception for that is within 90 days. So if you've departed the department within 90 days, basically they're just going to bring you right back and at the same, almost like you never left. Because we've had officers that have retired, maybe they had interest in something else and they decided that that's not for them, and they come back within 90 days and they're basically reinstated.
So
I
there's,
just, excuse me, Andrea, I just wanted to comment that I've seen one of the television commercials. And it was a good looking commercial. It really was. Andrea, were you going to mention the questions in the chat?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So there, the first question is, what is the starting rate of pay?
So for police cadets, it's $19.91 an hour, and I believe that's going to go up pretty soon, but I don't know for sure. And then once you've graduated the police academy, it goes up to $21.91 an hour, and it remains. Actually, Officer Moreno, is that you're a recruit officer, right? And you guys are at $21.91?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. That's what I don't know. I was drawing a blank and I didn't want to see something that was incorrect, but yeah, $21.91 for the first year. And then they go up to the officer rate, which just went up to 30. I'd have to look it up. I think it's 32 and just a little bit more right now for the patrolman rate.
Did you see the suggestion of, are you using billboards?
Yeah, we do place ads on billboards from time to time. We try to, use those resources wisely because everything comes with a cost. I mean, a billboard can cost up to $8,000 per month. And so you want to time it because we just finished seating for our CNM class, and now we're getting ready for our next class. So we'd probably look at doing a billboard or two in a month or so, just to get a little bit more interest before that class, because it takes a while for somebody to apply and actually get seated. I'll give you an example. We have the city for all positions, well, not all positions. There's a number of positions that are considered difficult to hire for, and police officers is one of those positions. Bus drivers is another. The city offers a $500 finder's fee if you successfully refer somebody to one of those positions. And what that means is, let's say Lieutenant Tapia refers a friend today, and that friend applies today. Well, that person is not going to actually take the test today. They're not going to test probably for a few months. And then they're not going to get seated for a few months after that. And then they're going to have to do the 26-week academy. And then they have to graduate OJT before Lieutenant Tapia sees that $500. So there's this lengthy period between where somebody applies and then where we can give those referral bonuses out. And it's the same thing with any piece of advertisement we do. If I do advertising now, I'm not advertising for officers this month or next month. These are officers that are going to be joining within the next year. So we have to kind of space those out. But yeah, we do billboards.
Another question was, is there an age cutoff?
And that's a great question because it goes back to what we're talking about. Do we hire people who retire? Absolutely. As long as you can pass the fitness standards, you can be a police officer. There are some police departments around the nation that have a cutoff age. In fact, the military, I believe, has a cutoff age. And so that's one of those questions. People say, "Oh, I'm too old." No, you're not. If you want to give it a shot, you can give it a shot at whatever age you want.
There's two questions regarding the lateral, so I think we'll ask them together. One of them is like, why do you think they're drying up? And then how many laterals are in the present academy class?
So why do I think that it dried up?
Yes.
It's a statewide one. It's a national thing, really. It's a trend around the nation. I can't just say New Mexico is the exception. We're just part of the rule. I mean, really, I had this question brought to me when I first got into recruiting. We want to get laterals on because the benefit of a police lateral is it takes far less time to train them. So I called the state of New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy and kind of probed around. I said, "Hey, where are we seeing laterals coming from?" And the response I got is they're just not. Around the state at that point, there had been a net loss of officers. And so there's many reasons that affect that. It could be political climate. I mean, just to be quite honest, somebody moves because they don't like the political climate. It could be to seek better opportunity elsewhere, because there are a lot of law enforcement agencies around the country that pay far better than we do. It just could be for family. It could be for any number of reasons. And so when you start to accumulate these various reasons, it leads to this issue we're seeing with the difficulties in hiring police officers and retaining them.
How many officers, how many lateral officers presently on the force?
I couldn't tell you how many are on the force. Again, it's really difficult to recruit lateral officers. I mean, when you're talking about a lateral officer, you're talking about somebody who has a very specific reason for going somewhere. With a new officer, they're basically looking for a job as a police officer. And, they're looking at things like benefits and stuff like that. Laterals, they've pretty much got their mind set up on what they want to do. So it's incredibly difficult to recruit them. We currently have 12 that are in our testing process at some stage, and we have 3 that are through the background stage and can be going through an academy, which we're planning to do. Maybe Lieutenant Tapia has an update on that, but we currently have 3 laterals that are ready to go through academy, and another, I believe, 5 that are at some stage in the background phase that are close to being hired.
I don't see any more questions right now in the chat. So I think recruit officer, is it Arnold Moreno, is from our Southwest Area Command? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And we're really delighted that Commander Barraza brought you along tonight. Do you have anything you'd like to add or tell us a little bit about what your position is? I didn't realize we had a recruiter in our area. What does that mean?
So I'm a recruit officer, meaning I just recently graduated the police part of the 125th class that graduated this past May.
Oh, so okay, so this is where I get confused with the titles, because there's something about recruit, cadet, and then recruit and OJT. So you're somewhere in that, the second recruit in OJT, on the job training. Is that where you are?
Correct. So I was a cadet for the 26-week academy, which is great. After graduation, then I become an officer working in the OJT program. So I'll have 4 months of it. Be ready to be a solo beat officer on my own after the program. That's where I'm at. I'm born and raised in New Mexico. So I always thought I was too old to do, this career, but at 38, I feel every bit of 38, but I'm a conditioned 38 because of the academy. So I feel great.
Sergeant Silva, you said you love doing these by video. And that is exactly the reason I hate being by video, because I only understood approximately 1/4 of what our new member of the Southwest force said. And so that makes me sad when I don't understand what people are saying. So, but I understand the not wanting to travel even all around the city to have to attend these meetings. But welcome. I misunderstood when the Commander Barraza gave me the title. It does say recruit officer, but I read it as recruiting officer. So it's nice to have you here, a brand new person. So do we have any more questions for our newest officer? Welcome. We're glad you're here, and thank you for joining us this evening. It's delightful to have you here. Okay, if we have no more questions, Andrea, Vicky, do you have anything you'd like to ask? It's your first night up, and you're welcome to ask any questions that you'd like to.
Nope, not right now. I'm just listening.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we move on to Lieutenant Tapia. Same questions for you. What has it been like with the shutdown? How have you worked on it? How have you overcome it? What's new in constitutional community-oriented policing training? And how are we all going to work together?
Right on. Well, thank you. First, thank you for having me here. I'm born and raised here in Albuquerque, specifically in the Southwest area. So it means a lot to be able to see a lot more participation from our Southwest members and community members. I've been with APD for several years, most of my time working in the field, and now I'm assigned to the academy, overseeing our OJT program, as well as all of our advanced training that officers receive once they graduate. So from that respect, one, like Sergeant Silva mentioned, there's no age that's too old to be in an academy. We do have, even in our current academy of 27 cadets, we have one that is, I believe, 52 years old. So, like Officer Moreno mentioned, we'll help get you in shape to keep up with these young kids. Other than that, a lot of COVID has challenged a lot of our ideas, and again, taught us a lot more about technology and making training much more available, whether it's to our recruit or to our cadet officers while they're in the academy. If we have any COVID exposures, being able to provide still a virtual training environment to them to maintain their consistency in training, all the way to looking at new ways of delivering different technology to our officers when we talk about any type of training mandated by the state. And then is specifically looking at community policing. There's that concept is really woven throughout all of our training, from the academy through our OJT program, all the way until through our advanced and our supervisor training. So there are specific training segments, but I think what's most important and where community policing is most effective is when it is woven throughout everything that we're doing. So that's kind of a brief summary. I think, again, looking at it, it's going to be much more effective. If anybody has any questions, and I'm happy to answer anything you have related to training.
I'm not sure if this is related to training, so if it's not, I apologize. I'm sort of popping it out of the air. But I was wondering, are there any SOPs, standard operating procedures, that specifically address the constitutional community-oriented policing? Do you know?
Yeah, so I think when you look at our policies, what's important about constitutional policing, a lot of that's going to be covered under our code of conduct. We have specific SOPs on training, and the training that we do provide. We have certain court-approved settlement agreement training that covers those specific areas. But again, the concepts of constitutional policing, ethical policing, community-oriented policing, problem-oriented policing is really interwoven throughout several policies and typically isn't just going to be a standalone concept.
Are you able to do in-person training now, or are you doing it on virtual? How is that working?
So right now we have moved all of our training back in person, with looking at virtual training as contingency options. But there is something to being able to get officers together, engaged, sharing ideas, and being able to ask questions in a classroom environment that is a little bit more easily facilitated in person. Oh, I think you're muted, Wanda.
I mute myself in case the guard dogs start barking and then I forget I've done that. So Officer Moreno, I was wondering if you wanted to comment anything, any comments about, since you're the latest one to finish training, how was that? How has that been?
It was great. I mean, definitely intense in a lot of sense, but as I'm finding out, the job is intense. There's a lot that applies for sure. We only had one block of our training that had to be over video, which was a portion of our law block. But for the academy, everything was, you know, hands-on, and I have no complaints of everything I've learned at the academy. Just looking at applying it. That's it.
So there is another question in the chat. Actually, it's a couple questions under one, and maybe I don't know who this could be directed to, or if anybody can answer it, or multiple of you. The first question is where are the areas in the Southwest Command that have the most community complaints?
I can answer that, Andrea, a little later, but I would like to take the opportunity to now introduce the rest of the Southwest officers, and I have a veteran sergeant that I invited to this. We'll get to that question a little bit. I would like for Sergeant Armijo to do that, but at this point, I'd like to introduce the rest of the officers. And Officer Moreno, thank you for joining us. I mean, it's great to see that all the efforts of recruiting are really working to our benefit. It's always exciting to see a big class of 20-some graduate and hope that they're going to hit the streets once they complete their OJT. So I'm very excited to always get recruit officers, because I have some of the FTOs in my command that are dedicated to the success of this department within the Southwest Area Command, and that's why you see some of these officers. But I really want to recognize the officers. First, I want to recognize Sergeant Luis Armijo. He's been with the police department for over 40 years. He started back when I was talking to him earlier today, back in the 1970s. So talk about experience and what the complaints are in the Southwest. He'll be able to tell you. I mean, I'll share those with you because they all get funneled to me through 311 and all the other complaints. But let me tell you, Sergeant Armijo has a wealth of knowledge that I've learned. I always seek his advice in the Southwest. He knows pretty much every alley, every corner, every street address, every problem address in the Southwest. He brings a great experience with him, not only from field services, but special investigations and DWI. I know he was part of one of our specialized units back in the day, and I'll let him comment on that and his experience. But he's been with us for over 40 years, and I'm really excited to have him on this meeting, so that way the community can get to know not only our young officers like Officer Moreno that has recently graduated and endured all the training, but also an icon of our department that's been here for over 40 years, patrolling the streets of Albuquerque. Can you imagine how much experience he has and what the things he has seen? So at this time, I would like to introduce Sergeant Armijo. Sergeant Armijo, if you want to unmute yourself, so that way we can all hear you. Yeah, touch your screen and then you're going to see a little red button and then unmute it. So it turns green on you.
I think one of the hardest things to do is unmute.
It's pretty difficult when you don't use it a lot, especially from a phone. And I may have to ask Officer
I'll
McMillan
go-
to try to assist him.
Yeah, I'll go.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hey, Kelly, as the host, you may be able to mute and unmute people.
Actually, Martisa, can you unmute Mr. Armijo?
It looks like he just was unmuted now. There he is.
Hello, I'm Louis Armijo, and I've been with the department for a few years. I worked in several places, mostly in the field. My biggest and longest, and probably the most experience and most knowledge I ever gained was working in the domestic violence unit that we had. It was a model program the department had. I worked in it for 10 years, from 1990 to 2000, and I learned so much in that program. And probably one of the biggest thing I ever learned was the program was put together by a group of community people, and that came together with the chief at the time on how to deal with domestic violence in the community. And their, how would you say, suggestion to the chief at the time was start a special domestic unit. And it was, what I liked about it, it was a field response unit. We were not detectives, we were field response. We were peak hours and peak days. And I learned so much from working and dealing with these people in the community. There were people from all parts of the community that were part on that board that kind of directed us, asked us questions, helped train us, and worked with us to get what we needed to do and develop the really unique and positive and national program. They got a lot of national recognition. It was a very, very good program. That was a very big connection with the community, because we sat on a big board and the majority of the board was made up of community members. And they directed us on training and many other things on how to respond to domestics. It was a really, really big, great learning experience for me. I also worked in the DWI unit, dealt with a lot of the issues in the area of DWI and rolled on it there. And I came back to the field. I was born and raised in the South Valley, part of the Atrisco land grant from my family. I was actually born at home and put in an oven. So if there's problems with me, that's probably where it came from. They left me in the oven too long. But yeah, I was born in the South Valley, born and raised, and I've been working back in the Southwest Area Command for about 5 years. I try to keep up on everything that's going on. I try to get involved in as much as I can, and I probably get involved in probably more than I should, because I kind of think stir up things on occasion. But we have a lot of areas here that that keep us pretty active and pretty busy. The motel area near the freeway is very busy. Central corridor can be very, very busy, and some other communities that are a little bit to the south can be very, very challenging to work and very busy also. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I was wondering, and then Andrea will finish the rest of the questions because you said there are others that are pending, right? I've read a lot about constitution or community-oriented policing, and it's the officers working with the community to solve the problems. And so
Yes,
I'm wondering, with your 40 years of experience, you've seen Albuquerque before and after, I think, 311. So do you have any thoughts about how having 311 has changed the relationship? Do you think it's improved it? Any feelings, thoughts at all?
It's opened the door for communication. I don't really deal with it a lot, but one of the things I learned in my career when I started getting involved, because I worked in the Bareilles area, we were very, very much into community policing, and my lieutenant would bring me in on a regular basis and run over the crimes in that area and wanted to know what I was doing and trying to solve those problems that we were having at the time with the community I dealt with on a daily basis. And actually, one of the other officers here, Officer Salandon, I worked with her dad, and her and I worked together very, very closely in the Bareilles area to do with community members and kind of how to solve these problems. And the good thing about it, after a while, they would come knocking on our door, telling us where the problems were. And between him and I and a couple other officers that worked in that area, we really had a really positive impact on that area. But the doors were always open to the community, especially in the Bareilles area and the San Jose area. They would come talking to Eloy, or they'd come and talk to me or Maxine Ross that worked with us at the time, and they already knew how to get a hold of us. They knew where we kind of went most of the days and where we were at, and they would relate to us the problems they were having. We had a really good communication with the community as a whole. And I think that was really, really important, and it should continue to be important.
I have one more quick question, and then Andrea, we're going to get back to the community participants in the chat. But do you happen to know Mike Tarter?
I do. I
He,
worked with him.
he has told me so many wonderful stories about how you guys used to police.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've tried so hard to get him to come and talk with us, but the last time I spoke to him, he was taking a class, a religious class, and it was on Wednesday night. And it was a very complicated complex, and I could never get him to give up one class and come to our meetings. But like you, he had so many wonderful stories to share about how the community knew the officers on site, and the officers knew the community members, and that it was a wonderful environment.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm hoping that you can help us learn how to get back to that again. And now I'm going to hush and let Andrea ask those questions in the chat.
Thank you, Commander, for introducing us to Sergeant Armijo. I appreciate that. So another one of the questions is, if there's a bad street or a bad intersection, does it get additional assistance or attention?
So yes, I don't like to label streets as bad, but when we see an increase of let's say crashes or more foot traffic in an area, we'll pay special attention to that. We will put our minds together. If it can be handled by the uniform officers, by their increased proactive patrols, then we'll handle it that way. If it's an area where it's being reported just that it's foot activity and it has indicators of maybe some narcotics selling or usage in that area, we'll use our special investigation undercover officers. And even when we have like an actual address that may be causing some problems, we'll ask our partners through the special investigations to assist us with some covert operations, undercover operations as well. So when we see a spike in crime in an area or a street, a certain block, we do pay special attention, not only with uniform officers and patrols, but we also use it with special investigations. And then to answer somebody else's question about how are they funneled in the community complaints, 311 certainly has changed or gave people the ability to make light of some problem areas. Sometimes a lot of those people want to remain anonymous, but they don't want to stay on the phone calling 242 cops. So 311 has really helped us vet those. We have a department that vets every 311 complaint, because it could be a problem in a park, it could be a problem on the street, like lighting or something, or solid waste management problem. But everything that's vetted or for the police department is forwarded to all the area commanders, and we get those notices, and we have a timeline to address those. So, and my Sergeant Armijo and all my watch commanders and all my sergeants, they get an email from me if it's appropriate for them to handle that complaint. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example, like the all-terrain vehicles, the ATVs, and all those off-roading vehicles that are driven through our city and mostly through the Southwest Area Command. I get endless complaints from 311, and it's good to see that some of the community members are kind of fed up with that kind of behavior, and they want some change. So then what I do is I send out an email to my sergeants and to my watch commanders, my lieutenants, to make sure that we spike our patrols in those areas, to make sure we try to address that complaint. Because the last thing we want to see is somebody get seriously hurt again from driving an all-terrain vehicle, because it shouldn't be ridden on the road. There's many rules why those all-terrain vehicles shouldn't be on a public roadway. They don't have they don't meet the federal guidelines that motor vehicles do. That's why they don't have lighting, they don't have braking, they don't even have protection for the occupants. So for those obvious reasons, we do, space special attention to those areas that are vetted to us and people notify us. So those community members out there that do send on those 311s, thank you so much. Keep on sending the 311s, because I will see every single one of them, and we address every single one of them.
Are there any?
Go ahead, Wanda.
I was just going to ask if there are any other questions in the chat, Andrea.
Yes, yeah, there one that just came in now. It says, how does APD perceive the relationship with block captains?
You know, that's a great question. And at this point, I think it's a good time to introduce my next officer. And it's Officer Annette Saladin. She brings 22 years of experience with the Albuquerque Police Department. I think her and I are pretty close to neck and neck as far as the years of experience. But Annette does come with 22 years of experience, all of it in field services. So I am very honored and very fortunate to have an officer like Officer Saladin work under me and serving the Southwest community because of her experience, her dedication, and her loyalty to not only to the department and to her brothers and sisters in blue, but also to the community. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Annette Saladin. Annette?
Hi, everybody. I'm Annette Saladin. Like he said, I've been on the department for 22 years. The whole time has been in the field. And I've enjoyed it this whole time. I do love the field. That's my favorite place to be.
We were hoping that our crime prevention specialist would be here. We had a question for Ron Kemp, which was about neighborhood watch and how many neighborhood watch do we have? How many block captains do we have? Is that anything that you would know about, officer?
I do not know the amount. I don't know the numbers. I apologize. He would probably be your best person to ask those questions to.
Many years ago, pre-COVID, of course, everything is pre-COVID, post-COVID, or middle of the COVID. I attended a block captain training quite by accident. And at that time, they said that there were officers assigned to specific block captains. So you had your own contact within APD. Does anyone know whether or not that's still something they're doing?
That is correct. We do get assigned block captains. Depending on the area command and depending on how many there are, we do get assigned one or two, which I know I do, and I'm sure the rest of the officers do. We reach out to them via email or a phone call once a month, check up on them, give them our city cell phone number, let them know that if they are seeing an increase in crime in their area, to give us a call that way. Like Commander Barraza said, we can hit that area a little bit harder, give it some more attention. But we do have a relationship with our block captains. Each officer is assigned one or two, and we do reach out to them to check on, give them the open door policy to, if they want to email us, call us, let us know what's going on.
So you do have a couple of block captains that you personally work with?
Correct, I do have one.
And could you tell us generally the area that they're in?
So my block captain, or in general? In general, we have the block captains throughout the Southwest.
Your block captain specifically?
I don't have his name offhand. I do apologize. But he's in my beat, which is around the Blue Water and Coors area.
Okay, that I was just kind of generally wondering where people are coming together and being willing to be block captains and have neighborhood watches. I have had conversations with our crime prevention specialist in the past, and he has indicated that it's difficult to get people that live on the same street to come together for a meeting and talk to each other about joining in and creating a neighborhood watch and a block captain. Does anyone have any suggestions for us on how we can attempt to increase that? Because certainly that increases our relationship with recognizing our officers.
So I can comment on that, Wanda. I'll comment on that before I introduce my other officer. So the block captain program, it is established through the city of Albuquerque. The block captains have to be vetted through a system, and it all starts, like you said, with our crime prevention officer, Ron Kemp. When I took over this area command, I got a list of all the block captains in this area command, and surprisingly enough, I had more officers than I had block captains. So when we assigned them, we assigned sometimes 2 officers to each block captain. When I first, on their first month of making contact with the block captains, there were some that were on that list that were either not participating, didn't want to participate anymore, or had moved and didn't communicate that to us, to the city or to the police department, that they no longer wish to be a block captain. But I can tell you that my requirement and my expectation when I send this to the watch commanders and to the sergeants, they know that the officers will do their diligence to contact their block captain once a month. It'll be by either a phone call it'll be by email, and then once a quarter, they'll try to, schedule a face-to-face contact so they can keep the communication. And obviously, if the block captain doesn't want that face-to-face contact, because obviously, COVID is still alive and still strong, we respect that. But the block captain program is a community engagement. It's an effort to engage in other members of our community. We have that communication, because some of the questions that are asked of our officers, most of the time, they're not only police related. It can be related to maybe a problem park in the area, a bad lighting in the area. It could be about parked cars. It could be about waste management. It could be a multitude of other things that they may have information on. But that's one avenue that we can actually bridge the gap and close the gap. And obviously, if the block captain has information on crime trends in the area, they share with their officers, and the officers know that they can then report it to their sergeant, and then we can all communicate to make sure that we know what problem area exists in that area of the block captain. So we do have that. It's like I said, it's a monthly communication from the officers and the block captains.
The CPC's had an hour-and-a-half meeting with Chief Medina the other day, and he talked about how successful he feels his ambassador programs has been. It seems to me that a block captain would be a closer connection than perhaps the ambassador would be to a specific organization. So it seems like if we want close contact with our officers and feel like they're at our side, then neighborhood watches and block captains, it sounds like we need to come together as participants in our community and be willing to talk to each other, have each other into our homes, and get our crime prevention specialist in there, and then get us an officer assigned to us. I mean, what closer relationship could we establish than that?
I can agree with you more, with you, Wanda. But in speaking with crime prevention officer or specialist Kemp, it was shocking for me to learn how many neighbor associations we have in the Southwest, and there's anywhere between, I think, a total of 10 to 11. And and then I asked the question, how many of them are active? And and I don't know if COVID had an effect on that or what, but there's only less than a handful that are active neighborhood associations. So we need to touch base with those neighbor associations, see if they're still live, if they have participants. But it's got to be community engagement. We can always start the process like the block captains. That's a successful community engagement approach and avenue, and so is the ambassador program. I have one sergeant that's on swing shift. He's actually one of the ambassadors for a different group, and I'll invite him. I'll try to invite him either next month or the following month, so he can speak on his engagement to the ambassador program. But as a police department, I think we're doing our due diligence and trying to reach every group, every organization, neighbor associations, block captains, and we're doing our part. And I think it's gonna prove that we're doing good, and we're gonna be successful with those.
I'm sort of embarrassed to have to say that for the longest time, I was the only person that attended the Southwest Community Policing Council meetings, and also the only person that attended my neighborhood association meeting. Ideally, the Southwest CPC meetings have changed. We have far more members, community participants now, but my neighborhood association has not changed. People just don't come to the meetings.
Correct. And and we always, it's got to be voluntary. People have to be able to, they want to be involved, they have to be involved, they want to be involved to change their community or affect change anywhere. So we just ask community members, if you're out there and you want to be engaged, find out what neighborhood association you belong to, what neighborhood. If you want to be a block captain, you can always email me or always email Ron Kemp. I'll put my email in the chat here, and we can direct you to get you started to be a block captain. So, those avenues are always open. And if you don't mind, Wanda, can I introduce my last officer?
I want to make one more comment and then yes, we want to know your other officers and we want to hear from them. But we have, I think it's Donna Harris that has said that she met her 2 officers, but then has never heard from them again. So hopefully we could check up on her block captains and find out why it's not happening. But yes, I want to hear from your officers, and then if we could hear some from them about their thoughts on community-oriented policing and how can we as community participants help. I think it's half our job.
I agree. The next officer I want to introduce is going to be Officer Stephanie McMillan. She brings 14 years of experience to us. She is a field training officer. She's been a field training officer for a little over 2 years. So I was part of the FTO program for a long time. So thank you, Stephanie, for stepping up and making sure that we have field training officers, because officers like Moreno, they need our officers and our field training officers every day to help them and guide them and mold them to be, again, solo beat officers. But Stephanie has been in the Southwest Area Command 10 years of her 14 years. So again, I'm very honored to have Stephanie under my command and also be an FTO officer. So Stephanie, can you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, yes, just like Commander Barraza said, I've been on the department for 14 years. Being a police officer is what I decided I wanted to do when I was in middle school. I don't know why my family doesn't have any law enforcement in the family, but that's what I decided I wanted to do. So that's what I did. I like the Southwest Area Command. I prefer to work over here. I've worked the Foothills Area Command a couple times and the Northwest Area Command a couple times, but I always prefer the Southwest. I come back here every chance I get. I like the community here is good. It has a good mix of different kinds of people. There's a lot of great people here, and then of course we deal with some of the bad people, but that's just like every area command. But it's a good mix here. We do, as officers, get a lot of support from the community here. Once a week, we try to eat out for dinner if we get a chance, if we get a break and get a chance. And a lot of times, people will approach us and thank us for our service, or they'll buy us dinner, even though we fight them not to. And so Southwest is a great area command. I love to work over here. And I grew up in the Foothills Area Command. Went to school here. Was born and raised in Albuquerque. I did my second phase of OJT here in the Southwest, and the first time I got to choose where I got to bid to, I came here to the Southwest, and I try not to leave as much as I can.
Thank you, Stephanie. And can you comment about the block captain process and how you see it and how you perceive it?
Can you say that the block captain, is that what you said?
Yes. Can you comment on the block captain process, what you perceive on it, and how active is your block captain?
My block captain does't do email, so I have to call him each and every time, which is fine. It's more, I guess, more personable to call on the phone or see in person versus email. But sometimes it's just hard to catch each other when you can only do phone calls. But block captains are important because we can't be on every block every minute of the day. And so if we don't know what's happening, we don't know to go look there, watch for certain. And so if they can have a direct contact with an officer, that's more productive than calling 242 cops and being on hold for a little bit just to get a message to that officer. So it is very beneficial to have a direct contact so that we know firsthand on complaints that they're having that we may not know about just when we patrol around the whole area command.
And
sometimes it works to unmute to hold my space bar, and other times it doesn't. So it takes me a minute to be able to speak out loud where people can hear me. So could you tell us a little bit about how you personally are able to use the constitutional community-oriented policing? I can only imagine that when an officer stops someone or has to approach and speak to someone, there's so much going through your mind about the situation that you're trying to sort out. And how are you able to remember, this is kind of a crazy question, but all the things that you need to offer someone, like if they should be offered the LEAD or if you're aware of any other programs that may help somebody that you come upon. How on earth are you able to sort all that out in your mind and keep a level thought about how am I going to help this person?
So there is a lot to remember, but I think just like any job, the more you put it in use, the more it just comes to mind when you find somebody that might be able to use that program. Also, if you have another unit with you, you can usually bounce ideas off of each other. That they might have had a situation that it applied to and it worked, and versus me, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. But it is a lot to memorize. I do save a lot to my computer, so on downtimes I can go and review things that have been sent out, or I'll save the instructions for how to get someone into like the LEAD program or anything like that on my computer. So I have easy access to it to go look it up. Sometimes it's hard to look it up in our normal program. So if I save it as a PDF, and I can go research it myself and get the information that I need. But it does require a lot of memorization of stuff and or practice. Practice makes you remember what you need to get done.
Commander, do we have one other officer that we haven't spoken to tonight? Or have we spoken to everyone? Does anyone else want to, if we don't have anyone else that we've not yet introduced, does anyone else want to comment on what it's like to try to remember everything that you have to remember when you encounter someone to attempt to have the best outcome for everyone involved? That has to be difficult. And I'm not sure, I mean, I know training tries to train you, but as we just heard, it's a lot of memorization and repeat to get it memorized so that you can actually call it up when you need it to be able to use it again in the future. Does anyone else have any comments they want to share with us?
Hey, Wanda, I do have one thing that I just want to put out there and mention to anybody who is looking for ways to learn a little bit more about APD or get involved a little bit more here. We do have an upcoming Citizens Police Academy beginning August 30th. And it is a tuition-free 12-week academy meeting on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Where you'll get to meet a whole bunch of us, learn about the department, a lot of our specialized units, see some of our equipment, and at the conclusion of the class, participate on a ride-along. So we do try to set people up on a ride-along within their area command to make it a little bit more feasible, learn about what the officers who who are patrolling your area are doing and what they see on a daily basis. So I'll add it in the chat, but I'll have all the information on how you can apply, and hopefully we can get a few people to come out. Usually we cap the class at 40 folks, and we are about halfway there already. So
when I first joined the council, it was a requirement that is it citizens or civilians? It's Citizens Police Academy, correct? Yeah.
yes,
Okay. Yeah, I did attend. It's grueling to go twice a week for 3 hours, but I think it was an unforgettable experience. I did enjoy it, as rigorous and difficult as it was to get there. There is so much to learn about APD. I've had other people say that they worked with the police for years and learned something about the police that they didn't know when they did go to the academy. So it is kind of a fun experience. It is very informative, and I learned a lot. So I was really thankful to go. And I wish that my other council members could go, just because it's a great experience. It truly is. So, okay. Any other questions, Andrea, Vicky? Anything else we've forgotten to cover this night? We're finishing up early, so we must not have a lot of chatty people tonight.
Hold on. There was another question that just came in.
Okay.
Regarding illegal fireworks, who do we call when this happens at Pat Hurley after the park is closed at 10 p.m.?
So for illegal fireworks, you would want to call 242 cops. I think 311 is no longer working after the park is closed, but you want to call 242 cops, because if it's happening in the park, that is activity that we need to address as police officers. So please call 242 cops unless it's an absolute emergency, then you want to dial 911.
I did see the something on Twitter. I don't tweet, but I do read it. And I saw something that indicated that the city had set up a 311 for illegal fireworks. And I did try to do that, but the difficulty is you have to have an address. And how do you know what address the people live in that are setting off fireworks? So that I found that part of it to be a little bit difficult to use, even though I did try.
Yeah, that could be challenging to really pinpoint an address where they're coming from. But if you just call if it's after hours, the park, or even if it's in a neighborhood, because I just saw the question from Marguerite, if it's in the neighborhood, you can always call 242 cops, make the report, because we want to go out and confirm that it's fireworks, right? And then we also have I know for the weekend, we had officers teamed up with a fire marshal, and they would actually contact the resident where they observed fireworks being used, shot up in the air, and they would give them a cease and assist notification, more like a warning, but they would actually go and confiscate the fireworks. And I don't know if they were taking action as far as giving them a citation, but I know they were going out and serving with the cease and assist notification and seizing the illegal fireworks. But if the community has concerns about illegal fireworks still being out there, please call 242 cops and let us know. Just give us the block number so we can have officers respond.
I thought it was interesting that on the 4th, no one, including myself, called in the barrage of illegal fireworks. Well, I'm assuming they were illegal. They were on the street behind my house for 3 hours solid. And I'm not saying boom, boom, boom. They were boom, 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 boom for 3 hours solid. I can't imagine the amount of money that went into that display on the street behind my house. And it was interesting. Nobody called, including me. So I guess I can't complain. It was horrible on the 4th. Yes, I agree. It was horrible on the 4th. And I was waiting to see if somebody else called, and none of us called. So yeah, we just listened to them. So do we have anything else we want to discuss tonight? So, Captain or Commander Barraza, anything you'd like to ask for us to do as community participants? How do we help make our community better? Any officers have any suggestion?
Any officers have any suggestions?
I would say just keep calling when stuff does happen so that we are aware of what's happening. Sometimes without you guys, we don't know what's going on in your neighborhoods in your area. So keep calling the police. Sometimes I know we can't get there very fast if we're stuck on other things, but keep calling and reporting it. And that way we can address the situations as they come upon. And if it's a non-problem, then we can try to do tech plans and stuff. But your guys' knowledge of what goes on in your neighborhood is you guys see it firsthand. After. So you guys calling the police.
I feel a half a penny away from being homeless. So I have a soft spot in my heart for people that don't have a safe place to live. And so when I hear the complaints about them blocking the sidewalk, which of course they should not be doing, but they have no place to be. And then I look in my neighborhood and I see automobile after automobile after automobile on the sidewalks, blocking the sidewalk. So if anyone was riding a motorized wheelchair, they would not be able to be on the sidewalk. They would have to go into the street, as well as the children that have to go into the street. And then I feel bad about reporting that, because I know in my neighborhood, on my street, there are so many houses that are families doubled up. And because they're doubled up, there's no place to park. And so I feel like if I complained about everything that I wanted to, because it's very frustrating to see the sidewalk blocked and cars parked the wrong direction and all those other things that confuse me. I didn't have to endure them when I lived in Ohio. So I'm a Midwestern, I guess, at heart. But on top of that, then there are streets near my home where the houses were constructed so that if you park in front of your house, you're literally stopped at the stop sign. And I know on 86th Street, there's a couple of streets where the people are literally parked on the sidewalk. So they're not in the street at the stop sign, and they're merely parked in front of their home. I mean, none of that's safe. How do we, and I don't think it benefits anyone to call if you're gonna come and give them a ticket and they already can't afford to live in a house on their own and have enough places for their cars. So that troubles me. I don't quite know how to sort that out in my mind and figure out what to do, because I certainly don't want these people to get an additional burden, but I don't want them to park on the sidewalk. So I don't know what to do.
You could always, if you belong to a neighbor association, neighbor associations, not neighbor, I'm sorry, homeowner associations. If you live in a homeowner association, they have covenants and they have the way to deliver a notice to each resident of their illegal parking. So that's also another option if you live in a homeowner association.
None of the areas that I'm talking about are homeowners associated, no HOAs, no HMA, none of those. There are plenty of gated communities, and of course I have no idea what's going on in them, but these are things that I just see driving down the street. I frequent 86th Street from my house to Central, and there are many streets where you see the cars parked on the sidewalk in front of the stop sign because their house is so close to the stop sign, they would be parked at the stop sign if they were on the street. And so it's just frustrating to me that there's so many things that we don't seem to be able to do anything about, but they create unsafe situations for people. Okay, I muted for a minute because my dog was trying to be a guard dog. And I guess that's my whine for the night. I don't know how to deal with those situations that don't seem fair and seem uncomfortable, and cause problems for all of us in a roundabout way. So I don't know if we have anything else. Andrea, is there anything else we need to discuss this evening? Have we run out of questions, comments that people want to make?
There are no more comments or questions in the chats, and yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, I think one thing that we probably should do is, I said earlier that we've been ghosted by David. So I think officially, based on the guidelines that are posted online, missing 2 meetings with no conversation from the individual, I believe we can consider him to be no longer a council member. And we'll say the same thing for him. If his circumstances change, we hope he'll fill out a new statement of interest and that he'll come and be a part of our group again. We do miss him. He had a lot of really important information to relate to us. He had a different perspective on everything based on his background. So let's see, anything else we need to say, talk about? Where are we?
Thank you all for attending. I really appreciate it.
And I guess the only thing, next month we'll have a detailed presentation about the Independent Monitors Report, also known as the IMR. So we'll have that. We'll have Commander Jason M. Sanchez to talk to us about EFIT. And maybe we can get Elizabeth Martinez to talk to us about the DOJ's vision of what a community policing council was supposed to be. And then I hope, Commander, that maybe you can bring Sergeant Armijo back and a lieutenant, and so we can talk about that level of supervision. It was great to have all these officers with us, our seasoned and our new. We're always delighted to have them, and it's been a wonderful experience to have you guys come so that we could meet you. And Lieutenant Tapia, we've lost Sergeant Silva. He had to jump off, but we really appreciate your time. I understand that you folks are giving up your time also, and we really appreciate that because our goal is to make life better for all of us. Right? Anything else? We're going to sign off early tonight. Nobody will be complaining that we're leaving early, right?
Nope. Thank you, Wanda. Thank you for accepting the officers that came tonight. Like I told you before, my goal is to make sure that I bring a variety of officers and recognize their hard work. So thank you so much.
And we love that. We want them to recognize us too. So we want to know them. We want to know us. And Sergeant Armijo, I really wish I could get Mike Tarter to come and talk. I think the two of you could tell us some stories, and we can have a great time listening to those. So maybe I'll be able to talk him into it now that I can give him another name that he may remember from those years ago of when you folks practiced community-oriented policing, and we knew the community knew you and you knew the community. So
Yes,
that's something we have to look forward to. So I'm really excited. So yes, Commander, thank you very much for bringing everyone with you tonight. We so appreciate you and what you do. Okay, anybody
Welcome,
else?
thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, everyone. And I'm looking forward to the days when we can actually see each other in person. I know you guys will hate it, but I'm looking forward to it. And good night.
You
Good
all.
night, thank you.
Bye-bye.